Hi, I'm Jason Gorb for Best Buy, and we're here to talk about the Positive Vibration XL ANC Bluetooth headphones, over-the-ear headphones from our friends at Marley. So anybody who's sort of been paying attention to the sort of audio front in a while is surely aware that Bob Marley family has licensed to a company the right to sort of manufacture these electronic devices that sort of extol what it talks about, positive vibrations. You have a little bit of the spirit of what he brought to music to actually bring into the reproduction of music, as it were. One of the things that they do, they make a very big deal about, is to do things in a slightly more environmentally conscious way. They're using a lot of wood as a material, are reducing a little bit in plastic. Obviously there's a lot of cardboard here, but they've dramatically reduced a bunch of plastic they use. It actually says on the back here, there's a listing of all the elements that they have, like aluminum that they're using, I guess, instead of lower quality materials. But yeah, the big thing is that it is FSC certified wood, which is environmental certification to assure that everything that's sort of being harvested is done the way that you would want them to be. I've mentioned before, I'm actually a big fan of over-the-ear headphones, much more so than most in-ear. I was very excited to actually have a listen to these. These have a number of features that I was super interested in. Obviously, noise canceling, I'm not a huge fan of, but I know many people really love. But the fact that this was a hybrid between something that allowed you to use Bluetooth but also still plug in, I was really excited to hear how they sounded. And again, as their sort of top end, as I guess, I want to see what the company had done to actually make it as good as we want it to be. So inside the box, you open it up, you get Positive Vibration XL ANC. Same kind of printing on the front. Inside, you get a nice storage bag. Again, Jamaican flag colors there, absolutely in keeping with the spirit of Bob himself. You get a bunch of stickers. You get the "We plant trees across the globe. Spread the love. Thank you for your purchase. Carrying on Bob's legacy of love for people and music. Share the love and tell us what you think." So we can do that. We're telling you what we think right now. Let's just take 10 seconds here and just recognize the musical genius that was Bob Marley. He completely helped transform world music in its entirety, brought along the sound, obviously, of his native Jamaica to the world, and did a beautiful sort of hybridization between crafting immaculate pop songs. He was schooled in country and gospel and soul and so many other musical legacies, but also the sound that had come, the rock steady, the dub, and all the elements that actually came out in Jamaica around the 1970s. Lost far too young, but his legacy remains. And so if we have a little bit of a celebration of the life of Bob Marley, that's never a bad thing. Now inside the package we have the headphones sort of wrapped in more M's. And you can see they sort of fold, this sort of hugging foldy thing that I think a lot of them are doing these days. You have a big sort of headband here, comfortable foam, nice soft pads. And then you have on one side a series of volume up, volume down, and a middle button, which is essentially a function button. And on this side, you actually have the noise cancellation settings. You have here USB-C charger, yay USB-C, and even more yay, you have a mini jack in, which allows you again to bypass the internal amplification of these and actually run them with whatever device you're using, be it your home stereo, a portable device that actually has a headphone out, etc. For me, that's a very, very big deal and something that I would look for in a pair of headphones like this. Let's say, again, environmentally friendly, let's say after a few years the batteries stop actually charging, you still have the benefit of actually being used these for many decades to come. The drivers themselves should last even if the internal batteries stop. So in terms of environmentally friendliness, simply putting in that little 3.5 millimeter jack expands the lifetime of these headphones dramatically. What else we got in here? We also have, again, USB-A to USB-C cable, and we have this well done right angle headphone jack. Is a 3-pole headphone jack, which allows you to use the headphones with a built-in microphone as essentially a headset, making calls, etc. So if you see the 3 stripes here, you know it's a 3-band. It's 2 stereo plus the microphone. And what's kind of clever about this is the cable itself also has the green, the yellow, and the red of the flag. So one side is straight pole, the other side is the right angle. Big fan of this cable. It's covered in this sort of cloth material to prevent for kinking. And again, to the point, you can see this sort of zip tie-like thing here. It's itself made out of, it looks like hemp, frankly, if not wrapped up cardboard, showing another way where they've reduced the amount of plastic in here. Even the inside box, which is occasionally plastic, this is made out of what it looks to be recycled paper, and that's it. So I appreciate them going to this sort of extra effort and making these elements sort of work the way that they should. Now, the headphones itself, again, we talked about that it actually has wood on the side. This is obviously all plastic, but we have a little bit of wood, which hypothetically might actually attenuate the sound somewhat. I'm not sure how that'll work, but we actually have microphones built into the sides here, which will, of course, help with noise cancellation. Again, we've mentioned this before, noise cancellation simply being that you have mics that listen to outside noise, you invert the phase, so if the noise is a wave, if the wave was going up, you do the opposite of that, and hypothetically, by having noise and anti-noise, they cancel each other out, and what you're left with is just the music. So if you have this low rumble, if you play the opposite of that rumble, then it'll cancel out, and then you'll have that. It works at times. I'm less of a fan of that than I am of sort of passive noise cancellation, as it were, of having really good, muted, almost like earplugs, those construction sort of big ass earplugs. If you have something like that, sort of doing the trick, I'm a bigger fan than you sort of blasting anti-noise in it, but there are certainly some elements or some areas where having noise cancellation will actually do the trick, and these do a pretty adequate job of noise cancellation. I found it does what it normally does, especially, it's really easy. You can turn them on when no music's on, and you'll hear everything sort of get weirdly muted. And you can feel the pressure on your eardrums, because literally it's playing at whatever volume the anti-noise. So even though it's canceling stuff out, you're still basically getting, twice as much sort of volume. It gets a little bit complicated because it's not as perfect. The microphone obviously isn't as perfect as what you're hearing sort of inside the headphone by the time it gets in. It's registering what the noise on the outside sounds like. What you're actually hearing is slightly different, so the noise cancellation is never completely perfect. I'd much rather they build headphones that are nice and constructed to actually prevent noise, which I gotta say, what's nice about these is that when you put them on, it's like that. It's like it absolutely mutes much of the outside world. So I actually found the need, even walking down the street, found the need to activate noise cancellation greatly diminished. Now, as Bluetooth headphones, they're good. I found that I got significant number of hours, I think 8 or 9 or something like that, before I actually needed to charge. It wasn't necessarily a full charge. I didn't, kill them before I actually had to recharge. They sound, they have a very particular sound, which again, some people are going to really respond to. And they do the trick. They are, you put them on your head, you hit play, and usually it works. Now, I found pairing a little bit cumbersome. It wasn't nearly as obvious as it is in some. You have, it's nice to not have to read the manual to actually figure out how to actually pair this stuff. And I found, especially on my Android phone, it took me considerably longer to pair these than it should have. Holding down the middle button and waiting for it to pair. Holding down the middle button plus. Like whatever the combination is, it just gets a little bit frustrating rather than having a very straightforward way of actually pairing these and actually getting it to work. Now, because you are using Bluetooth, you are relying upon the audio within the headphones themselves. And I gotta say, the actual sound that these produce, for me, isn't super satisfying. It is clear that these are designed to really emphasize the highs and the lows. They're really thumpy in terms of bass, trying to activate it. And what did I test them with? Well, of course, I tested with Bob Marley music. What else was I going to put in? I wanted to put in stuff from Exodus, stuff from even Catch a Fire, even the original Jamaican version of Catch a Fire, without all the stuff that was recorded afterwards, to get something that has a very vast sort of musical landscape that definitely has these really deep, heavy bottoms and this high tinkling stuff, but also this beautiful mid-range. And I thought that the mid-range on these wasn't nearly as satisfying when listening in Bluetooth mode. Also, the volume, once again, you're limited based on the volume that these will actually generate. And they've reduced it, obviously, for the safety of your ears, God bless. But it does mean that if you're in an environment where you just want the music to sort of take over, it doesn't really get as high as I believe that these drivers need to actually essentially bring up the mid. And this is, again, subject for an entire other video. But when it comes to listening to music at lower volumes, psychoacoustically, we actually emphasize certain frequencies. So you actually lose certain frequencies as it drops. And so you have equalization that actually boosts many of these frequencies, usually the low and the high. So you would think that the mids would actually start really shining, because that's where, when you lower volume, usually the mids actually peak. And so you have to sort of artificially raise the high and the low, those smiley face EQs, if you've ever seen those. What's surprising about this is even at lower volume, really, you get just all highs and all lows and just not a lot of sort of rich mid, which I was a bit disappointed in. Also, in terms of comfort and feel, it's nice. They swing, nice big padding. I was really sort of hoping that we would get something that was as comfortable as you would want to be. It does say left and right on the inside, so you know which one's which. Basically, it means that the buttons go on the back, and so when I put it on and sort of adjust around my big head, it's fine. But I found after a very short period of time, even 10 minutes or so, very pinchy. A lot of pressure right on the head, even adjusting this further up so that there's absolutely more space. There's still, it's just the construction is such that it's really close against the head, which it needs to do in order for all the other cancellation elements to work, but it's just not very comfortable. And I found even after less than half an hour, just considerable sort of pressure where there was. On me with all my hair, it didn't really work, let alone if I had, beautiful dreads like Mr. Marley. Now, because there is that headphone jack, that 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, you are able to hear what just the drivers themselves, the actual speakers, as it were, head speakers, sound like with another device. I plugged it into a reasonably high-end portable music player, dedicated portable music player with exceptional DACs and all of that stuff. And these sound way better. So it's clear that the phones themselves, the construction of the headphones themselves, is pretty decent, save for the comfort issue. But in terms of actual sound, you could drive them much louder. And by driving them louder, you could actually hear the timbre of the instrumentation much, much better. It just absolutely opened up when you actually plugged it in on analog, as it were. And again, that's one of the sort of frustrating factors when it comes to Bluetooth headphones. Whatever you're listening, let's say you have a turntable and you want to listen to your turntable. Well, if you're doing it via Bluetooth, you're immediately digitizing anything analog that the turntable was doing to get them digitally to work with your headphone. And so I understand completely the convenience factor of it. But when you're spending really good money on a pair of headphones, you want them to sound above all. Convenience in some ways is sort of secondary. Comfort and sound are kind of there. And if I have to have a cable and to get the best sound, that's what I'm going to do. So for me, they're a little bit of a bummer. I really wanted to like these, but I just found on Bluetooth the sound relatively anemic, and even plugged in, just the comfort for me just didn't work, didn't live up to what I expected from this company. I love the design philosophy. I love so many elements that they worked in here. I wish they were a bit easier to use and set up without needing to sort of decode what takes place in the manual. As I said, Bluetooth pairing should never be more than completely obvious on whatever your device is, even if they just, put another button that was so clear, it was marked blue. It's behind your head anyway. It doesn't really matter. That would have been a much more obvious way to go. Yeah, the sort of built-in noise cancellation stuff is stuff that I wouldn't necessarily use. It's fine. It's certainly not the most robust that I've heard, but it on Bluetooth with noise cancellation on, the sound I think was definitely not to my taste. Even plugged in with noise cancellation on, same thing. It immediately kicks in to the digital amplification, and I just was not pleased with the sound. Plugged in as straight up headphones, they did a decent job, but I would probably personally look likely elsewhere for them. So there we are. There's a look at the positive vibration. Sorry it wasn't nearly as positive as I necessarily wanted it to be, but nonetheless, for me, they didn't necessarily sort of live up to what I believe these headphones could absolutely be. I know this is not the first iteration from Marley. Maybe in future they'll tweak it even further, get the sound less weighted in those particular frequencies, and doing something a little bit more natural and neutral would be fabulous from my perspective. I believe there's other sort of within the same range phones that you might enjoy more. On the other hand, if you listen to predominantly like electronica, drum and bass, something like that, where it's really all about the low bass, and you just want the convenience of having Bluetooth headphones and aren't really worried about the playback of, let's call them, natural timbre instruments, acoustic instruments, then maybe these are the ones for you. For me, they didn't necessarily work, unfortunately. So for Best Buy, I'm Jason Gorber. Thanks so much for watching, and please subscribe. Please let us know in the comments what you think of these videos we're doing, and we'll see you next time. All the best. Take care.